And today we're going to be looking at a Carapace vampire deck that I made last night on stream. I've been super excited with the new patch for 8.3 with the addition of 12 new cards. I believe it really affected monsters in a positive way, and I'm going to explain to you why and show you a couple games of commentary so you can see for yourself. So to get into it, I thought Devotion would be a good idea because Auburn King does have a lot of power in the right circumstances. It's a really big tempo swing and plays very well into our cards like Nithral and our Conquerors. But to get through the deck, we have Auburn, which is able to spawn and play a random bronze Wild Hunt unit at the start of the round while in hand or deck transform. Obviously we want to get it to its third form given that it also has Veil. We have the ability to use it as an engine, boosting every Wild Hunt unit by one that we play. And so that's really cool. It synergizes perfectly with Nithral, helping keep it out of removal range. It's another big card that we have here. Order, damage a unit by 1, dominance, damage it by 2 instead with a cooldown of 1, so this is going to help cater our bleeding kills, and it plays really nicely into the next card that I'm looking at here, being Detlef van der Aretine. And with this one here, deploy Spawn Blood Mood on an enemy row for 1 turn, increase the duration by 1 for every adjacent vampire. So ideally you want to play this after you've played Crimson Curse, and once you sandwich this in between, you have the ability to now damage a bleeding unit by 1 every turn. You can obviously tutor that with other bleeding cards, or ultimately just use Nithral to help it out so that you can get that death blow ability to spawn the Ekamaras in the row to get more points on our side. So it's very powerful. Going back to the Unseen Elder, on deploy give bleeding by 4 to an enemy unit. At the end of your turn, give bleeding 2 to a random enemy unit without bleeding. So it's a constant bleeding engine. If you can keep this out there, it is very powerful, and we wouldn't want it to get locked. We wouldn't want it to get ruptured or anything of that sort. That's why I think it fits very well into the Carapace umbrella. So with Devotion, you get an added effect of bleeding on an enemy unit also triggers at the end of my turn. So it makes a big difference when the opponent's trying to do simple math. It gets a lot trickier, right? Because the bleeding's going to be ticking twice as fast, so it makes a big difference. Now, I wanted to get some quick points, so the Yigern with the Osral package just seemed appropriate in this case. We have Naglfar for consistency, so we're able to look at 2 gold cards from deck, play 1 and place the other on top. This is going to help, especially if we play it in round 2. We're guaranteed to pull into that last gold card by round 3, so it makes a big difference. Of course, we have a lot of engines going, we want to keep things safe. It just makes sense to throw in Cave Troll being a defender. I think it's a big point body. You can always put a Carapace charge on this if you want to keep it out of removal range, if you're playing against Skellige, for example, or if you want to protect against Rupture or whatnot. You know, they might have an offensive Purify, but I think it's still worth including in this case just to make it that much harder to get to our engines, right? And then we have Orianna. Now this used to be sort of the main focus of the old vampire decks, which is why I like to have it in here, but it also acts as a very good distraction because Orianna's not actually the strongest card anymore. It's definitely a good supplementary play, it has lots of points, but it's not the win condition that we have. So on deploy, give an enemy unit bleeding with a duration equal to the number of allied vampires. On ranged, every allied turn on turn and boost self by the number of bleeding enemy units. So you could see this would get out of control. Generally, this sees removal prior to being able to do so. However, if it sticks, it's incredible. If they remove it, we still have so many other engines that it barely matters. And we've spoken about these guys here. Let's go into Naglfar. The 5 provision spot's kind of an awkward one to fill. I think the Taskmaster, through playing a few matches, seemed to be appropriate. I had a Fletter before, and I found that it was a little bit awkward because you had to play it, then give bleeding for it to have vitality, so I just like this here. We're able to purify and get through a defender, for example, and that way we can apply bleeding to every unit on the row and not have to worry about just only being able to hit defender if they row stack. Also, we have the ability as a defensive purify if we get poisoned or if we get locked, for example. There's something that we can do there about that, and I think a 5-point body's pretty good, 6 when played with Auburn as well. I have the Wild Hunt Riders because they also synergize with the Auburn King. If we high roll into a Wild Hunt Rider in round 3, we're able to pull them all out of the deck if we haven't already. Otherwise, it just acts as a pretty good thin because it's not too difficult to have dominance when everything on the opponent's side is going to be bleeding. Now, the Neckarat's a really good option as well. This often sees leader charges because it's just so strong. On Zeal, you have Zeal with this one, so basically you're able to use the effect right away. Give an enemy unit bleeding for 2 turns with a cooldown of 2, but whenever you play a vampire, reduce its cooldown by 1. So I made it sure to include as many vampire tags that made sense within this deck so that we could always keep this ticking and pretty well get it every other turn. And it makes a big difference when we can apply bleeding to every unit on the board, especially with a lot of the swarms that are going around right now. It's a really powerful card if it sticks. If not, we're able to get out some of that removal, maybe something that they didn't necessarily want to spend, but they felt obligated to spend, you know, given the circumstance of if this is not treated, it's going to be just overwhelming. Now, I feel like Indriga Larvas are auto-include. Everybody's seen these before. They're normally in whenever I put a monster deck. They have the ability of thriving, and they spawn a base copy of themselves, so you'll have 2 of them for every 1 card that you play, and I think that dedicating 1 per round is completely fine if it means taking a round for sure. I like to usually use 1 in round 1 and 1 in round 3, generally speaking, and it seems to work. We have a pretty good Thrive proc and a pretty fast Thrive proc from the Wild Hunt package and some of the other cards that we play that are low base power. We play them in sequence that way. And of course, point slams. If I had to say, my least favorite cards here would be the Plumbered, because it relies on the bonded ability. So give an enemy unit bleeding for 2 turns, so it's 6 for 4. If bonded, you get the extra, you know, 2 bleeding, which makes it an 8 for 4. It's very rare that you get them both in the same round, and it's very rare that they'll stick once the opponent realizes what you're trying to do. Garkin's alright as well. It's a little bit of an awkward spot to fill at the 4 provision while keeping it devotion, but they're mainly in there for the vampire tags. At the end of your of every allied turn, boosts out by 1 if there's a bleeding enemy, so it does have some value. It does have a pretty big ceiling. I'd say it could grow larger than a Noon Wraith, for example, or another 4 provision card in that range if we're just looking for points. And of course, Brux is really nice for the Thrive curve with the larva and whatnot, and they give bleeding in their vampire status. So that's pretty much it here. I haven't had a chance to look at what everybody else is doing in terms of vampire decks and whatnot, but this is what I have, and I felt like it was pretty successful when playing last night on the ladder. We had some games, and there wasn't really a matchup that this struggled against, except for SY Crimes. I mean, they were pretty bad, and it was definitely tricky to get around. A lot of the no unit nonsense that's going around as well gets a little bit tricky because we really need to have opponents bleeding in order to make this work, but every matchup's going to have its kryptonite, so we have to just deal with what we have here and expect that, you know, some games are going to be harder than others. So we'll get into a couple games. I'll provide some commentary. We can go over basically what the best plays will be. I'm going to be posting this deck guide on playgwent.com as well, so you guys can easily import it to your game and give it a try. I wanted to get this video out as soon as possible so you guys would be able to get back into pro as soon as you can and really compete this season on the ladder, because it's a ton of fun, and I think we got some of the balance changes that we really needed to make this game survive and feel great again. So let's start playing against some kind of movement deck.
There'll be nothing to pick up when I'm done with you.
We don't have many cards that are row dependent. Just a couple here. The Neckarats, the Mithril, and we got the Oriana, right? So I feel like we could push and take round 1 if we keep both larva, but I do think it's a little bit greedy. Let's start by kicking the Plumber and the second Rider, and we'll just see where that takes us here. Already dealing with the nonsense. I guess it's a good thing that we kept both of the larva. If we separate them by row, it's not going to help with their bombs and whatnot. I see. There you have it. Let's go back in and see what they do. Now, this is one of the toughest matchups that I would say we're going to be facing when we're playing this deck. We want to have units to actually be able to target. I don't think we're going to be getting a lot here, so I'll take that in consideration when playing. Maybe we don't always take the bleeding cards. Brux is a little slow. They have the TA. I think that we take the Riders here. I don't know how far we'll be able to contest the round, because we we still have big points with the Yigern and the Conquerors, right? Crimson Curse might not get its value either. Maybe towards late game when they don't have Sabretooth it might be a consideration, but we might even look for something a bit better. We'll see. I guess that's our chance to tempo here. It's going to be very easy for them to kill the Yigern. I'm just hoping that they don't heatwave it. And they probably think that we're running Kelly still because Carapace is a little bit of a curveball. And although these decks deny points, they do struggle a little bit for proactivity and getting points for themselves. So that could be something we could look to abuse with some of the tempo swings we have. I'm just glad that Saber-Tooth's been played early to get it out of the way.
Don't leave me here.
Quick play trap. I feel like that should be a bronze trap. Okay, they that's not. I mean, I guess so. That's fair. Better now than never. Let's get this done. Respect the Thrive curve. Those extra couple points could matter. Just going for it. Don't see a point in not playing here. You see what I mean though? I think that they're trading down, and I think that it's a lot better if they were on red rather than blue in this case. I guess the idea with Guerilla Tactics is to help with row punish. I'm just letting them have that. 14 to 1 just kills it all. Guess that's a bit of a tough spot to be in here. If we were to...
A fitting gift for our
I don't feel bad about that. This way, if we have a really big push, then we can start trying to bleed. Auburn is a really good card for that. It's gonna have to demand some answers here, and for what it's worth, Ozzy's just a big play. So let's see what we got. I'm gonna stay true to the whole bleeding thing and just see what we come up with. For a deck that struggles with proactivity, it's gonna be very hard to answer this sort of thing here, so we'll keep the armor on it. and it shouldn't be too difficult to defend card, especially once we get some vampires going. I'm thinking about putting down Crimson and then looking at Oriana after. If we can get out a Heat Wave, then Osril I think just sticks, unless they're running Crimson Curse. Or not, Curse Corruption rather.
Have you seen a fuse lying about, have you?
And so they click that, and it bleeds out. If anything, I'm just hoping to hit the back. I want them to hit the armor. We want to keep those going, just in case we feel like spending.
There is no other way.
I want a row stack here. If they push something, then we have it safe. We'll keep that just going. Messes up our plan a little bit. Oriana's too slow if nothing's happening. Diving for the Osril. I think we'll get 2 cards out of them, so it shouldn't be a problem. They heatwave that, they still have the point ahead. Hopefully the next card they play is actually something that we can use Oriana for, because I'd like to just be able to save it. Trap goes down.
Ha! Yet another horn for my collection.
I think we're going all in. Let's see what happens here. Six from leader, 6 from nets, 12 passive. I think if it's a unit, I'll play. Didn't respect the Bray, and that's going to be a big problem.
You fight me, or you watch her die.
So we just have to at this point. Turns that back online. So what we're looking for here is both cards and leader. and they got to play, so perfect. Job well done. Short round 3, I think that we could do much better than a deck that just has traps. So we'll see. Bomber has to go. I don't mind that. This is useless, so we're looking at like 15 points. And I think we actually just play our cards. Normally I'd consider maybe discarding or something like that, but I think it's just too valuable. Verticile should beat us.
Rubbish. This one has the life force of a cockroach.
If they heat wave that, then we tie. So that's not bad, considering that that matchup's very tricky for us. So let's get into another game here. It's looking like it's probably going to be
You
Commandos.
best yield now.
They got a huge buff, so this is something that we played against last night. We managed to beat, but we only had one matchup, so we'll have to see how it's going to do over time. I think what we want to do is we want to Oz-roll the Pavetta so that they can't do a triple commando scenario, so that's something to consider. Last time we didn't. We still were able to win, but let's focus on that. Let's take away Abruxa. And I don't think that we're going to need a Taskmaster in this matchup here. And that should just be enough. Luckily, they can't abuse the coin in us. We're going to be on red here, which is a bit better.
Nice,
And
get
business
princess.
as
So we
usual
get
with
what?
Ride Curve. It's going to take a little bit of time
Streakers.
before we get, of course, the riders out there, but we'll put those down. Get the Thrive proc, put the Jaeger down on range row, split it up a little bit. We know that's going to be pretty difficult to contend in this round because of the Veil status. Would have been a reason maybe to keep the Purify, however, I haven't been seeing the Griffin Witchers a lot in the Commando decks lately, so... we'll do it more progressively, there we are. Just to keep that outer removal range and just respect the curve to maximize the value we have.
No audiences. Starting today.
So it's a very gold heavy hand. Keep that in mind. Boiling doesn't take this away, which is great. We'll dump the riders and look for our escape here, I think. And if they start pinging the Yigern, then we'll know for certain that they do have a boiling in hand, but
Death to the
otherwise...
enemy!
Okay, so I'm thinking that that's what they're going to do again next turn. Let's do our thinning. And just to give no value whatsoever to what they were just doing, defend our range seems smart. I think we can test this a little bit.
Elf must die!
3 per turn, passive on 3. I think that's just where we keep our card. Not a lot of commandos, not super overwhelming and whatnot, so we could probably just do fine here. So I like that. Not missing a whole lot either. Let's defend card, but at the same time, I want to get that Pavetta gone as soon as possible so we can consume it and have them know, hey, listen, you're not doing it a third time. And that's going to make a huge difference because there's a lot of triple commando decks going around right now. We should have it done in just under 3 turns here.
Open this gate, kneel before your king, and I shall show you mercy.
That's what we'll do. We'll bleed that out so we're not double dipping. And if I'm not mistaken, they had 4 copies before. Big points, so patience is the key here. And I don't want to give them the boiling oil value.
Army's a waste of time for one like me.
And here's the thing, if they go ahead and pass, we could probably get ahead on our 1 turn. If they continue to play, we'll eventually catch up. If they can't bring out commandos in round 3, I think we just win. Tough spot to be in for sure. So we have the opportunity to tempo. We have to go ahead and take that lap here. It's the only way to get ahead. 10 points. 1, 2, 3. I'd argue saving card here.
rubbish. This one has the life force of a cockroach.
So they caught me on playing leader. We could have saved one charge. Arguably both. However, we did actually keep a pretty good swing here. If they're not able to bring commandos back, they're relying heavily on amphibious if they have that in deck to win them the game. I don't know if it'll be enough. So we can pull in the unseen. I think that's just a move, right? Brox is not very strong. I'd like to see if we can get Oriana or something. Actually, that's not even bad. Have to see what it is. So they have Roach, which is 12, Full Test, which is 12, Renew Place for 12. I don't see how they would otherwise have room for Amphibious and Renew. I'm just hoping that it wasn't a big bait for us and we didn't get caught playing that for nothing and wasting value on the Yigern, but there's one way to find out. Get some value here. Respect the curve and the engine of the Oberon, and then we'll do... Actually, it makes a bit more sense just to put the Unseen Elder here, start getting some value before we get into this whole play. So there's one here. Maybe they have 2 or 3.
Death to the enemy!
It's still something.
Why should I help you?
If it sticks, we're in a really good spot. Ideally, would have been nice to have 1 leader charge for it, but it's not the end of the world. Hopefully they don't have that boiling oil that we thought they did, or they mulliganed it back, or whatever the case. I just can't see it here. That's an expensive deck. I guess it's just very top heavy, and the rest is boys and lives.
I have lived long and seen all, and I am forward.
And this is just where Thrive is so strong. Next card will play for 10 as well. We'll finish with 37 points. They still have the one bleeding there. I think it's going to be enough. Renews 9 are down, so it's going to be probably the Witcher or I see. That plays for 8.
Bloody non-humans.
Nothing but the skin you've got. Their hair,
they
so
need
silky.
16, 17 points to win. Is the one bleeding? 16. Yeah. It's not going to happen here.
Temeria has yet to speak its last. Regroup.
So that's the play. And there you have it, guys. We played 2 games and we got 1 tie and 1 win. I think it's a pretty strong deck and it's incredibly fun to play. It's really interesting to see how the meta is going to be shaping out over the next week or so, but I think that this is going to be a pretty big contender. Like I mentioned, this is about the 3rd version that I've tried of this when I was putting it together and trying different things, and I felt like this was just kind of all around the best situation. and you saw that there's a lot of different packages in the deck that are good in long round and short round, and if you're patient, you'll just get the points you're looking for even when it doesn't seem like you have them up front. So I'm pretty impressed with the game so far. Give it a try, let me know in the comments what you thought of it, and if you do like it, make sure you give it an upvote on playgwent.com. I love when my decks are trending, it's a lot of fun for me, so definitely support the channel. And I do stream on Twitch every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, so come and hang out there. That's where we're going to be trying all the new decks prior to the YouTube videos for the next couple weeks, so definitely come check it out, and it'll be tons of fun. Thanks again, we'll see you guys next time.